Hi guys and welcome back to Slice of Mike. Today I'm doing my August wrap-up and the first half of September wrap-up. This is only the novels that I've read. It does not include the graphic novels. I wanted to do a separate wrap-up for those just to not make this too long. The first book that I read is The Uncoupling by Meg Wolitzer, who is also the author of The Interestings, which is one of my favorite books that I've read in recent time. This is about a high school, and it's about the different women in the high school, both the students and the faculty, and how their lives are all affected by this play that the school is putting on, which is called Lysistrata, and I'm not really sure if it's real or fictional. I could have looked it up, but I didn't because I'm lazy. In Lysistrata, the play, the title character asks all the other women who live in, I think it's Greece, it could be Rome, to abstain from having sex with the men as a way to pressure them for ending the war as quickly as possible. They believe that by withholding this very carnal thing that all men want, that they'll be able to put an end to the war, and indeed it works. There are parallels drawn between the war in the play and the wars in the Middle East that are going on today. So there's a lot of contrast between the relative simplicity of wars thousands of years ago and how things have become kind of mysterious and the public doesn't really know what's going on half the time, and it's not something that the media constantly brings attention to. I don't know if I rated this yet on Goodreads, but I would give it 3 stars. It was my least favorite of her books so far. If any of what I've said appeals to you and you haven't read The Interestings yet, you should go read The Interestings. It's amazing. It's a little daunting, it's long, but it's a lot more satisfying, I think, than this was for me. The next book that I read is the Sisters Grimm. This is the first book in the Sisters Grimm series. It's called The Fairy Tale Detectives, and this is written by Michael Buckley. I believe it is a 9-book series. This series is about 2 girls named Sabrina and Daphne, and they go to live with their grandmother in this mysterious town. They find out that they are ancestors of the Grimm brothers. Their grandmother is a detective. She's a magical detective. She's supposed to solve mysteries in this community. She's supposed to protect the innocent from the violent fairy tale characters. This first book was just a sprinkling of a little bit of the flavor of what the series is going to be. I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about it because it is middle grade fiction, and the writing honestly was pretty good for middle grade, and I didn't think it was pandering to kids. I didn't think it was, you know, talking down to them, and I did actually really enjoy it. It is only the first one in the series, so it could go downhill from here, but it's starting off at a pretty good place, so I will definitely continue on and read books 2 and 3 pretty soon. The next book that I read is The Witch's Boy by Kelly Barnhill, which is also middle grade and also inspired by fairy tales or folklore to a certain extent, although it's completely different than the book that I just talked about. What used to be one kingdom was divided into 2 parts when this mysterious forest popped out of the ground. So Ned lives in this kind of castaway part of the kingdom, and Aine is from the main part, although she later goes to live in the forest with her father. Ned's mother is a magic user. She's a healer of her community, and she has the stockpile of magic that only she can use, and she is in charge of keeping it safe. Aine's father, however, is a devious guy, and he wants to steal Ned's mother's magic. Obviously, this throws Ned and Aine into conflict because their parents want different things, and then there's other characters that are introduced. We learn more about the backstory of the magic, where it came from. The thing about this book, and I think one of the reasons why I had issues with it, is that it is written in the style of kind of this cast-off ancient folktale. Things are described abstractly, they're not described in a lot of detail, so you have to either fill in the blanks yourself or accept that some things in the book are just going to be vague concepts and not as fleshed out as other books would have them be. That's not necessarily what I enjoy in middle grade. I like books to be a little more laid bare, I like them to be a little more upfront, and this was kind of a different take on that. The one thing that I absolutely have to say about this book is that the writing was fantastic. It was very fairy tale-esque, it was very well written, it was flowy, it had a lot of creativity, it was very original, and I thought it lended a lot of gravity to the story, but it also contributed a lot to this, you know, gloomy, mysterious quality that I've been talking about. To be fair, I think I will pick up a different book by her, but this was just not my cup of tea. The second to last book I have to talk about is called Act of God by Jill Simont, which I first mentioned on my channel way back in, might have been February when I talked about my most anticipated releases of winter. This came out, I think, back in March or April, and I only just got a chance to read it now. This story is about a group of women living in modern-day New York whose lives are all affected by the arrival of this mysterious glowing mushroom that shows up where they live. It follows them as they move from one place of refuge to another, and it affects everything and everyone around them, and it kind of just causes their lives to unravel. This novel is just over 150 pages, and the problem I have with short novels is that it does not allow me enough time to connect with characters usually, and I feel like I had a bit of that problem here. They were interesting people, fully developed characters, but I just didn't have enough time to witness what they were doing, what their personalities are like, and I felt like I was pulled out of the story prematurely. I liked what the story seemed to be saying, which is about how some things in life are just preventable and you can take all sorts of precautions, but in the end there are some things that you just can't prepare for. Your life can be totally turned upside down by something as small as a mushroom or, you know, a disease, an illness, anything like that. This was another 3, maybe 3.5 star book, which I was let down by, but it wasn't terrible. So there's that. The last book that I have to talk about is Armada by Ernest Cline, which I have owned for a while, but I've been putting off because of the buzz, and I didn't think I would like it. But surprisingly, I liked this book, and I just can't fathom why I didn't completely hate it. I don't know. I did read this author's first book, which was Ready Player One, and I didn't like it at all because of various pop culture references which were always brought in. I didn't get a lot of them. It was all over the place. I felt lost. I felt left out. But here, the pop culture references are a bit more focused. They're more tailored for the sci-fi genre. They talk about movies from the 80s and famous sci-fi books like Ender's Game and other things that came out around that time. And this book is heavily inspired by those things, so it makes sense here. At first I was worried that instead of just drawing inspiration from those stories and those movies, this book would kind of just be a rehashing of those and a remake, so to speak. But it actually does take those stories and subvert some of the standard sci-fi tropes, which was surprising and really satisfying. So I liked that part of the book, and there weren't many parts of the book, honestly, that I didn't like. A few things did bug me, though. The first was the character development. I felt very unattached to this main character's parents because they were just too nice. I do not agree that people are nice 100% of the time, so when a character is not shown being selfish or greedy or exhibiting some bad quality, at least in a single scene in a book, I don't really connect with them very well. Not saying that I'm evil, but I think you see where I'm coming from here. I just finished this book last night, so it's going to take some time to sink in and give it a final star rating, but if I had to rate it at this point, I would give it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it, and I think a certain portion of that enjoyment came from the fact that I didn't think I would like it. So I was pleasantly surprised, and therefore my expectations were not dashed on the ground. So that is it for my fiction wrap-up. I will be doing a graphic novel wrap-up to go up in a few days. If you guys have read any of these books, please let me know what you thought of them in the comment section below. I would love to talk about them, and I hope you guys have a great day. I will see you all in a few days. Bye!